Hello everyone, this is Quintus Hazard. This is going to be the quiet ASMR episode because it is currently 6 AM in the morning, but I really needed to finish off volume 7 before I went to sleep for the morning, and also because Badger has been doing cryptic things at me and has been saying playing Jerbat's route, I shouldn't worry about it. I don't know what it is, so I was curious. And also thank you to Alice Horter, who commented on my Mashiri playthrough, very helpfully explaining about how relationships work on Repeton. And so because of that, I've made you a very unhelpful meme. There you go. Damn, my mate Sprit died. The withdrawal so hot on my bulge. Bitch, look out for that Mashiri. The Mashiri so pain on my bulge. I should have just put bulge. Anyway, now that jiggery pokery is over with, I am now going to get into Volume 7 Part 2 quietly as possible so that the whole neighbourhood isn't woken up. It is currently 6:16 AM. Right. We have to talk to this person, and I don't have to worry about it apparently. You grew up fast. Naivete never did anyone any favours as far as you're concerned, and so you seized opportunities as they presented themselves. You listened, at least passively, to all the slogans and the self-help mantras about turning yourself into a productive member of society. Even while most of them were either useless or so propagandizing that they failed to make coherent points, you took the core message to heart, and you never looked back. For all that you've learned over the sweeps, nothing prepared you for the way everything changes. Something that means the world to you today could mean nothing tomorrow. Everything is weathered, and everyone is trying to change themselves, even you. But the world resists that change. For every bit of malleability in a person, there is just as much repetition. With enough experience, the patterns become glaringly obvious. You can predict the outcome of almost any situation. A memory like yours grants you all the tools you need to develop a profound wisdom regarding this planet. More often than not, though, your wisdom presents itself in the form of cynicism. Hey, it's Sestro. Sestro didn't kill your mate Sprit. You can't hold Mr. For Good accountable for anything that happened. Not when his personality so sharply contradicts any corrupt label you might want to stick to him. The kid spends his free time making toy buildings, for God's sake. He's soft-hearted and idealistic, and you're the closest thing to a mentor that he has. Odds are he's falling to pieces over indirectly hurting you like this. You really should go back and put him together again. That's exactly what makes this so hard. You're trying, but you're so used to projecting your hate outwards. Angry has always been easier than hurt. True. You almost wish you could find some good way to hate Sestro regardless of his good intentions. That way you could at least be consistent. These are the thoughts that flit around your head as you speed down the remote and congruous backroads that lie far outside of Stronghold 21. Always seeing Husk again? It feels like you've lost it. That sense of unity, justice, you don't know, but whatever it was, it was the one thing keeping you together. What do you do when everything feels so wrong like this? Well, you just mount your bike and drive, you guess. So you've been at this for a few hours now. This is definitely not on your agenda, but it's something to focus on. You could even say that the very fact that it's unscripted is a welcome change compared to the rest of this case. God, it's 6 in the morning and this is probably the loudest the background noises will be. Hell, maybe you'll just so happen to stumble upon your mystery caller out here. Wouldn't that be nice? Unfortunately, all you know is that you're looking for cult, and even then, cult can mean any number of things. You're wasting time, you know that. The wind in your ears seems to scream it to you. That no matter what you end up finding, it couldn't possibly shed even a desk lamp's light on this mess. But the wind is also in your hair out here. You're alone and alive, and anything is better than knocking over the dominoes that Noxious set up to try and kill you. You like to think you have the capacity to be rebellious. But for the 5th time in the last hour, you release Eves to scout out the area. You've spent the whole day stumbling across old ruins and abandoned temples, in search of anything that might count as cult activity. These past few expanses, you've been happening across disgruntled folk on the side of the road with increasing frequency, and you have a gut feeling that you're getting close to something. Some kind of farm, maybe? An anti-corporate hideout? It doesn't matter. The terrain has been getting steadily wetter the farther you move from the stronghold. The acidity of the rain-drenched ground threatens to sink this whole place into one huge swampy bog. Every now and then, something slithers its way up out of the sludge and reminds you why you never come out this way. Eves, flying overhead, suddenly veers sharply to the left. She's found what you're tracking. Soon she'll return to you and give you the details, but you'll likely have a few minutes before that happens. In the meantime, you pull over and try to force yourself to think clearly. Wow! Cool art! Some days an irregular sort of music will root itself into your head, occupying your thoughts for hours. It lacks consistency. In fact, you could almost call it a medley if it wasn't so unrefined and inscrutable. It lines your periphery, filling up the odd spaces in your mind until you're swimming in it, or would it be more accurate to say drowning? You've heard it over and over again working this case. Amethea has played her chords from the start. Husk marks the downbeats in an innocent, disarming way. Yes, enforces her melody now beautiful and caustic, an emphatic and irreparable presence even though you haven't seen her in Weiss's. God, why am I so bugged up all the time? Wait, what are you saying? You're pretty sure the most sentimental instrument Yeshin would ever play for you is an air horn? Maybe she'll set them up in a line and tap out chopsticks outside your window or something. It'll be all romantic and grating, just like in that one movie, the one with the guy with the boombox, Brendan Fraser. And I put my goddamn headphone thing back in the bullshit, yeah. Whatever. There's just no end to the mental sludge you have to dig your way out of to form a coherent thought. Oh, mother, you're exhausted. You bring your hand up to rub your eyes. Eves takes this opportunity to land softly on your right horn. When you move your hand, she reconfigures back into your visor and fills you in on what she found. It doesn't look like much. A settlement carved out of a swamp, it seems, flanked by old stony walls. Most impressive structure, there is a medium-sized church. There are signs of life there, though. You decide to check it out. When you arrive, you find that there's a bit more to this place than you initially thought. Several people are loitering around a couple of mushroom huts, and a few more are filing in and out of the church. It's not populous here, not by a long shot, but it looks like this place could potentially be home to up to 100 or so trolls. The noise your bike made getting here was probably louder than anything this place has heard for sweeps. It certainly seems to have drawn some attention. I'm trying to think, like, what is Badger telling me not to worry about? A lot of attention. Are you imagining it, or are all these trolls staring at you with pure hatred in their eyes? You'll have to be on your guard here. You dismount your bike and proceed to very officially trip when your boot sinks to the ankle into the goddamn mud. It makes it sound like what you would imagine a troll swallowing a bowling ball would sound like. Sort of a wet... I'm not making that noise. Pretty gross. When you manage to pull your leg out, you do your best to make it clear that you're here on official business. To your chagrin, it looks like pretty much everyone saw you playing in the mud. None of them found it very funny. I did. In fact, when you look around at these people, you notice something odd. They won't hold your gaze. Instead, they respond to your staring by becoming seemingly distracted by some feature in the dirt around their hives. For a moment you're unsure, but quickly come to the conclusion that they're all acting, trying to put on an illusion of harmlessness. You draw your sword. My name is Secily, Chief Regulator of Stronghold 21. Who's in charge here? No one responds at first. Begin to wonder if Proserpina would make a difference, but that thought is cut short when a mountain of a man steps forward from your right. For the moment, you whip your sword towards the approaching troll. He throws his hands up, palms empty save for a dirty rag which he promptly drops. Damn. Is that a jade blood? Interesting. Maybe you do have some real business here. He starts talking again, this time a little more tense, only a little. That'd be me. And you are? Your sword is right at his throat. It's a familiar spectacle for you, really. Nobody important, I promise you that. The two of you stare at each other. You squint at him and he looks at you like he just found you pouring ketchup on your cornflakes. Finally, he gives you a gentle look that seems to say, look how slowly I'm moving, and then he draws your attention over to his right hand. He closes it save for just the pointer finger, and you follow it with your whole head as he raises it up and taps your blade away from his neck. Not anyone worth killing over, I mean. I'm not going to give him the same accent I gave Necron. I'll be the judge of that. Why don't you start by telling me what a Jade Blood is doing all the way out here? Mind if I tell you somewhere private? He glances around, making a sort of half gesture with his eyes. Still, no one looks up. It's as if you're being intentionally ignored. Not ignored, worse. You're being tolerated. Only now do you notice the state of this place. Some of these people are missing limbs. Others are clearly deathly ill or so downtrodden that they may as well be. They shrink away from your eyes, scared to be seen. Maybe their innocence wasn't an act after all. You feel a spark of guilt coursing through you. Your impromptu suspect is still at your mercy, standing at sword points in full public display. Did you want to humiliate him? Oh, mother, what is wrong with you? You shrug, defeated, and signal for your would-be captive to lead the way. He bends down and picks up his now mud-soaked rag with an almost undetectable frown. You consider apologising, but he's already walking towards the church by the time the thought is fully formed in your mind. When you catch up to him, he's standing just outside the doors to a stopgap churchside greenhouse. He's holding his ruined rag in one hand, and with the other he holds open the door. You press your lips together and frown as you step inside. I feel like an apology is in order here. I hope you can understand. I don't normally threaten innocent people like that. Been a rough few Weisses for all of us. That it has. I'm not sure I got your name. Jurbat Batrav. I know this is your investigation regulator. Do you mind if I ask a question of you? A certain Scorp employee comes to mind. Usually I try to keep things strictly professional, but seeing as I ruined your rag... Jurbat takes a moment to think. He huffs. Regulator. Just what are you trying to achieve here? I understand this place may look suspicious to someone like you, but my blood is no excuse to assume the worst of me. Living out here doesn't make these people criminals. He looks to the side. A lot's been going on these past few blinks. It's not pretty, but it's not what it looks like either. I figure you can understand that. You're making me suspicious, Batrav. His expression sours. I'm only here for information, not to make arrests. As long as there's no reason to arrest you, that is. I can give you information, but you gotta promise that I can trust you with it. A lot of these folks have had some bad experiences with corporate. There's a risk involved in even letting you near this place. I don't want, people getting hurt. Oh, he's kind. He's acting suspicious, but not in the way you're used to. He seems desperate, scared of something, or perhaps for someone. And what's up with his accent, anyway? You can't quite put your finger on it, but every time he says a lot, it makes you wince a bit. Must be some regional dialect. Regardless, you think of all the ways you could manipulate this scenario. You could threaten him. You could lie, tell him what he wants to hear so he'll spill his guts, but something about him makes you want to give him a reason to trust you. You've been doling out a lot of that lately. Trust. First with that Oculus kid and now with Gerbat. It's been a while since you felt like people could really trust you. Alright, how about this? If what you tell me isn't dangerous or related to my investigation, I'll look the other way. He visibly relaxes. Say, you ever had a freshly grown hot dog? I keep a bunch of them right over here in the garden. You mean those bulrushes? Are they really like bulrushes, or are they like proper hot dogs? Because I remember that post that someone said, I found some wild hot dogs and he'd like put a mustard on a bulrush or something. Try one, I insist. Apparently, according to Badger, he'll just keep telling us hot dog facts until we say yes. He reaches down to a particularly supple looking hot dog plant, pulling one of its fruits off with a loud snap. like Dr. Phil meme handing us an L. I'm not really in the mood. You think I'm trying to poison you or something? You can't help the way your nose crinkles in distaste. Now that you mention it, if you can't even trust me enough to eat a hot dog, I don't know how far this conversation's gonna get. Come on now, just take it. Take the L. You wave the hot dog away. Jerkbat seems heartbroken. He looks like he might cry. Come on now, Secily, you can't just let him cry, can you? Turns out you really don't really care if he cries, you heartless bastard. Now, I come from a long line of people who know not to look a gift myth beast in the mouth. And you are looking this myth beast up and down like it's some kind of prize show. Do you have any idea how long it takes to grow one of these plants? It doesn't happen overnight, that's for sure. First you gotta find the right kind of soil. Then you gotta hope that the seed imbibes quick, because it can take up to 6 Weisses for it to germinate if the field capacity is even half a centimetre from optimal. And even then you sit around watching a frail little sprout play in the dirt waiting for the fungi to show up. Can't grow anything without the fungi. And all Mother knows they can be hard to coax out if your soil isn't tilled. Should you stop him? Nah. I mean, just look at the flower structure. You can't tell me you think one species formed that. And once you're done pondering that, you should look even closer and ask yourself if you think that anything is going to grow from that flower with any kind of speed. And if your answer is anything other than I do not, then I have some news for you. A Weiss to centimetre could take you 5 blinks just to get a decent crop. And they smell. These things are pollinated by flies, you know that? The whole garden starts smelling like a mortuary that's run out of preservatives. And then once the fungus is done sprouting, the actual fruit has to start growing out of it. Only known case of a plant parasitising a fungal thallus, actually. You know the meaty part of the hot dog is fungus. The skin on the outside is what we call the fruit. It's a mechanism. Plant gets pollinated and that triggers the fungus to start growing. And then the seeds grow in a corny layer on the surface. You have the power to end this, Secily, you do. Just take it. No. People like you make you sick. And the whole time you're waiting for that, you have to watch the fields for just about 1 million different predators. Hot dogs are eaten by just about any small to medium-sized lucite you can think of. I don't just go around passing them out to any old drifter. It's not like some kind of wiggler treat. It's a special offering. I'm hoping that gives you some idea of what I'm willing to put into this. But I guess some folks just don't have the stomach for hard labour. They prefer tomato paste and frilly condiments. That's not how I like it. The way it grows is nice enough for me. I just think it's neat. Complicated, though. The way I see it, only reason you'd refuse this is if you're trying to disrespect me. But you know, I bet your Lucis raised you better than that. What are you trying to prove here? No. You feel as if the agency to make this decision has suddenly and metaphysically been lifted from your shoulders. Please take the hot dog, Secily. Please take the hot dog. You make the only right decision. This was the only outcome. Fine. You cautiously take the hot dog from his outstretched hand. You don't usually eat them with the corny skin still on, or at all, really. If you're being honest, hot dogs are pretty far down your list of foods to eat during an investigation. But he's watching you so expectantly. He raises his eyebrows in anticipation, or at least in the closest thing to anticipation he can readily express. The silence is deafening. It's just you, the hot dog, and your audience of one. You raise it to your mouth. Puff! The hot dog explodes all over your face as soon as you bite down. Oh dear God. You start coughing and wiping it in your eyes, and then you realise you've just been poisoned. This is it, you're going to die in a swamp in the middle of nowhere, and it's all because you trusted a stranger enough to eat a fucking hot dog. You choke in one final breath and stare up at your assailant through watery eyes. He looks down at you and seems to be stifling a laugh. It's overripe! Ha! It suddenly becomes clear to you that unfortunately you are not dying. No, it's something far worse. You just got punked. You gotta pick them before they get too old, or you get a face full of spores. Why would you... How could you... He points behind you. When you turn around, you notice a couple of the bystanders from before peeking through the windows. They're struggling to keep grins off of their faces. Whereas before they couldn't even bear to look at you, now they're stealing quick glances at your powder-covered face and miming the scene to each other with exaggerated, explosive gesticulations. Bloody hell. Unbelievable. There were much simpler ways. You think so? Or just less embarrassing ones? Now they know you don't plan on killing anyone. I could have told them that. They've all been lied to before. You just got humiliated and you didn't lash out. Now that they can trust you. This is so stupid. Why do the people you interview always have to be so difficult? What, does he think the secret to diplomacy lies in blowing fruits up in people's faces? You really hope your coat isn't permanently stained with this crap. Whatever, at the very least now no one is focused on you. He's brought you down to their level for better or for worse. You hope he's happy with himself. You decide not to tell Gerbat that you were seconds away from redrawing your sword. I see. You are not happy, but you're enough of a professional to know when to keep your cool. You wipe your face on your sleeve, it stains a yellowish white. More importantly, I can trust you. That and I couldn't use that hot dog anyhow. I feel like we've gotten off track. Would you mind telling me why you're here? That is, if I'm trustworthy enough. No need to gripe, there's a reason for all this. He points out a noticeable division between the plants in his greenhouse. On one side, cash crops abound, hot dog plants mostly, but some other less recognisable plants and plant hybrids are scattered here and there too. On the other side of the divide, stretches of nightmarish flowering weeds nearly obfuscate their containers. The perimeter is only recognisable by the desiccated plant bodies that line their edges. Just to the side, powerful herbicides stand at the ready. Yes, those are some ugly plants. Not just ugly, dangerous. They grow too quick and destroy everything. So you place them next to food crops? I'm trying to grow hybrids. If I can breed a harmless little thing that still grows just as fast, I figure it'd be useful. Could plant them around and make some dead land live again. The hot dogs are just an added bonus. Aren't you worried they'll spread? As if they haven't already. All I can do is weed them out as I see them for now. Yes, and I'm sure you can do an excellent job. But that doesn't explain why you're here specifically. Do you expect me to agree that your botanics qualify as a reason to be so far away from the stronghold? Hamifi could easily arrange for a greenhouse of much higher calibre inside the city walls. He looks at you like you're some kind of idiot. The phrase city folks just don't get it rattles around in your head. Guess not. So what is it then? Are you running from something? Or maybe you're running from someone? Nothing like that. Just trying to study something is all. And what would that be? Look here. You direct your attention over to a particularly colourful plant. It's been a long time since anything with this much vivacity grew somewhere you could see it, so it has a certain charm to it all on its own. See, this looks pretty, doesn't it? Turns out it could kill you. And me. Ha! All I would do is poke it on the antler and it'd paralyse me. Is that a threat? No. What? No. I just thought you'd think it was interesting. I could tell you how I bred it, but I bet you'd arrest me. Unless this is somehow relevant, maybe I should. It's relevant, don't worry. He looks down at the plant. The two of you share a moment of silence as you watch the gears turn in his head. It stretches on much longer than it should, and you stare at him unrelentingly before he finally decides to take the hint and explain himself. Picture this. He holds up his hand like he's about to tell you something incredibly important. Sometimes I feed it hot dogs. Oh, for God's sake. And? I remember that overripe hot dog I gave you? I feed it those too. Haha. Are you just going to keep showing me plants? If I'm being honest, I'm not sure what else I can do for you. You asked why I'm outside the city, and these plants are the answer. You briefly wonder how someone so big can walk around in a greenhouse this small without constantly breaking everything, not to mention the very real possibility that he could paralyse himself. You are suddenly very cautious about where you are putting your hands. Are all your plants this dangerous? A fair amount are. If you're worried about them, we can talk inside the church. You're inclined to just go along with whatever he says at this point. You just nod. He holds up a finger and fishes around in his pocket for a moment before presenting you a shiny golden necklace. It's quaint but well made, though you can see some slight irregularities in the chain. The Caparia pendant hanging from its centre is expertly crafted by someone who clearly takes their work seriously. You look at Jerbat quizzically. It's tradition for this place of worship. I hope you can understand. Yes, you can. You've done these kinds of stings before. Sometimes it serves you well to look the part, otherwise you catch some unwanted attention. You take the necklace and slip it over your head. The two of you exit the greenhouse and head towards the church doors. The inside of the church is far less gruesome than your mind played it up to be. There are no tuning forks, no screaming voices, no weird dark walls. In fact, it looks almost homey, well lived in. You get a few strange looks from some of the occupants, but any hostility you may or may not have imagined is gone. They seem satisfied enough when they notice the glimmer around your neck. So, what did you want to ask me? Finally. There are a few things you can think of that might be important. Jerbat is jade blood. By birthright, he knows things about corporates' inner workings that most trolls don't. You know he's probably living off a decent corporate wage. If you asked, you're sure Hamifi could dredge up all kinds of information on this guy, but you're not exactly desperate to talk to her at the moment. You know he's growing and studying dangerous plants. You're a little bit confused about them. If they're so prolific, why have they not spread farther? Why are you only hearing about them now? You have no idea if Jerbat knows the answers, but there's no harm in asking. You also know he's in charge of a non-traditional church of Caparia. Now that you think about it, that could make a halfway decent motive for wanting to steal a vial of godlike blood. You sincerely doubt he had anything to do with the burglary, given his disposition and his living situation, but it doesn't hurt to be too cautious. Let it be known that you are not above grasping at straws. You decide to ask about... As a Jade Blood, I'd imagine you're well taken care of by corporate. That's almost right. When I feel the need to head into the city, I've got money. I don't really see much point in it, though. Because you grow your own food? That and I can't hardly stomach what they sell there anyway. Surely you must keep in contact, though. You must be doing something important to convince Hamifi to let you live out here. I admit, the reasons I'm here border a little on the personal. That and the plants I'm studying are region-specific. How so? What's stopping you from growing in the city? Jerbat sighs. Hold on, you see these? He pulls his shirt collar to the side. Underneath, his chest is covered in painful-looking mosses and fungi. They seem to spread across his whole torso, embedded into what you can only assume are his arterial and venous patterns. What? I got permission to stay where I picked these up from. You don't know how to respond. Your mouth hangs open for a moment, ultimately leading you to sputter out the stupidest thing you could ask. Is it contagious? God, sometimes you have trouble with this. If you would just keep your distance from people like you usually do, you wouldn't keep making these mistakes. You're like a magnet for bad conversations with strangers. Emotions and tact go out of the window as soon as you lose even the slightest amount of control over a situation. As it stands, you got lucky. He hardly seems to notice your faux pas. Not likely. Gotta spend some quality time with the plants themselves to get this number. I've killed some friends of mine though, ruined a few farming communities too, and wanting to keep that from happening again. Part of what I'm doing out here is looking for a cure. I'm not really supposed to be in this place specifically though. Don't think Hamifi is gonna like that much. You're telling me that you're intentionally breaching your agreement with corporate? Yep. And you don't think I'd let Hamifi know what you're doing? Nope, you don't strike me as the type. Bold assessment. She must not check in on you very often. She fills me in on some things, a bit of a one-sided conversation usually. Sometimes I help out with cloning when she needs a hand. But other than that, not much. Have you ever heard anything slip? Something that maybe you shouldn't have? Why are you asking me? You're the one working for him. Stay with me here, I'm just trying to fill in a few gaps. What is it with you? Scared of your bosses? He softly shakes his head. You know, I knew who you were just as soon as you stepped off that motorbike. Hamifi doesn't tell me much about herself, but from what I hear you practically raised her. I hope you didn't come all the way here to try and dig up dirt on your kids. He stares at you, daring you to defend yourself. I'm beginning to think you're misreading the situation. You're not really in a position to be questioning my motives. He scoffs. I didn't realise we were taking positions in the first place. It's part of the job. Or it's part of you. Everything always has to be some kind of challenge to you. Everybody has to have something to hide. What are you hoping to find, Regulator? That's an interesting take on the situation, Batrav, but it's patently unhelpful. Perhaps we can leave the psychoanalysis to the temps and stay on task. All I'm trying to say is there's enough hostility in the world. You're not doing anyone any favours by adding to it. How noble of you. If you'd seen half of what I've seen, I doubt you'd be so accusatory. I think I've seen enough to form an opinion on it. You know, I may not seem like it, but I've done a decent amount of reading. You ever heard of something called a fair trial? From my understanding of them, they were hardly fair. The very fact that you can recognise that proves you know what I mean. The Renaissance had some problems, major problems, but it hit closer to the mark than whatever we're doing now. Now we hardly even arrest anybody, we just kill them instead. I mean, you just about took my head off back there. And for what? Because I looked at you funny? I apologised for that. We both agreed that I misjudged the situation. He chuckles. Misjudged it, huh? So what happens when it's not me on the other end of your sword? Someone who doesn't know how to deal with anger? What happens when an innocent troll gets misjudged? What happens when your fair trial fails to convict a serial murderer? On my last case, I uncovered an operation that killed dozens of trolls with fake medicine. I found them with crates full of poison and a manifesto that would put it everywhere. What happens when the indictment for those smugglers gets lost in legalese? Should I redirect the widowed bondmates to you so you can explain your philosophy on justice? He crosses his arms. Maybe you went too far. Sure, Regulator. Much better to let businesses decide who dies. You're obviously not getting anywhere with this. You sigh. Why don't we talk about something else? I have other questions. Be my guest. So those plants, the ones that grow so fast, why have I not seen them before? You probably have if you've ever been round outside the stronghold. They've gotten to be a bit troublesome. Given the fast-spreading nature of the species, I would think that they'd be impossible to avoid. Given time, it's bound to happen sooner or later. I'm trying to breed some nicer ones to outcompete them when it does. That's my cause. You say that like they haven't already had time. I find it hard to believe that this species just so happened to evolve like this overnight. You'd be right to be sceptical. Ready for a crackpot theory? Those are usually pretty common in my line of work. Shoot. I think someone made them this way. I think someone wanted them to hurt people. I've been around a lot of plants, and these ones just aren't right. He's speaking as if he's informing you that your mate spirit is in critical condition, concerned, saddened but professional. Why would someone intentionally create something that could destroy the ecosystem of the entire planet? Your guess is as good as mine. He looks down. If I'm being perfectly honest, it takes a lot out of me sometimes. Trying to keep my head up, trying to keep from just throwing in the towel and leaving the world to its mess. I guess that sounds pretty foolish coming from a troll who's fighting for a cause like mine, huh? If I've learned one thing in this case, it's that there are a lot of causes to fight for. I'd venture that yours is better than most. He nods. What about you? What are you fighting for? It's an odd question. You haven't really reasoned through the whys of your life since you were young. Back then you fought for her. You wanted to succeed because that meant you could put the terror of this world of failure behind you. You saw yourself in your mind's eye with a smile on your face. She would stand right there next to you, not a care in the world. She would be happy, free. She would look at you like you hung the stars in the sky for her, because you would do it 1,000,000 times over for her. You would do anything. Oh, but then she died. And now all you see is red. I suppose I fight so that no one else will have to live through what I have. He stares at you with a thoughtful look on his face. You can't help but feel uncomfortable in the silence. I don't mean to be melodramatic. It's not melodrama if it's real. You lost someone. He's seen right through you. How did you know? I've seen it before. That's the real reason I'm here. I could set up shop with plants anywhere. I could spin some argument about soil quality or whatever you like, but that'd be just talk. I'm here to help a friend of mine get by. If you're only here for one person, why are you in charge? I'm really only in charge through proximity. As it turns out, the one I'm here to help is the one who should be running this place. That explains the lack of response to you being held at sword point then. Yeah, well, what can you do? They don't look to me for guidance anyway. Kind of hard to lead a religious community when you're not so religious yourself. I don't blame you. I've seen a lot of harm come from piety. I believe it. I won't be surprised if a cult had something to do with those weeds, actually. Lots of people wanting to end the world one way or another in those circles. Your conversation reaches a natural lull. It's about time you change the subject, you think. Do you happen to know anything about a vial of lime green blood being stolen? He looks confused. Lime green as in lime green? You sure it wasn't olive? If it was olive, why would I be looking into it? He makes a face like he's wrestling with something. After a moment he shakes his head and blinks his eyes clear. I guess not. Sounds like something out of one of those fairy tales. I assure you it is very real. Real enough to get at least 3 people killed. What makes it worth killing over? I'm going to assume you're not just playing dumb. Ha, nope, this dumb is all real. Right, the blood is said to have life-giving properties. It's rumoured that it could make someone immortal in the right hands. And you think I have something to do with it? I doubt you even had the means to pull off the operation in question, unless you happen to have a lot of highly trained friends, that is. I don't make many friends. Especially not those kinds. I didn't think so. Well, you can go ahead and cross Jerbat off your list then. That was harmless. Jerbat seems airtight, and yet, despite your best intentions, despite you making a fool of yourself time and time again today, you honestly don't want to leave. Maybe it has nothing to do with Jerbat. Hell, of course it has nothing to do with Jerbat. Let's be real here. If you wanted a lecture, there would be plenty of people on this planet that would love nothing more than to rip you to shreds. I don't make many friends, he said. Yeah, you're not the only one, Batrav. Birds of a feather flock together, even those with broken wings. You don't want to leave because it would mean going back. You don't consider yourself an easily frightened person, and that would be because nothing scares you. Nothing physical, that is. Your head, though, there's a story waiting to happen. You're fascinated, you think, with Mashiri, with Yeshin, just as you were with Alina, because when you're with them, you don't have to focus on you. Yes, of course they would talk about your life, your interests, your fucking coping mechanisms, but in spite of everything, it never felt real. Nothing ever feels real. These people in your life have an incredible ability to shift your focus. They can make the world seem manageable for a time, either by promising you a partner in all this, or by convincing you that the malice you feel is something out of the ordinary, something external. But it's always there. You always feel it. You've always felt it, just waiting for you to let it in. If you keep busy, it can't find its way to you. If you run it in circles, if you talk yourself up as the one in charge, then it has no room to take control. You're an incredibly important person to some people. That should be enough. You wish you could tell Mashiri everything. You wish she could feel the same way. You wish you didn't have to feel this at all. You wish you could tell Alina instead. Okay, Secily, time to calm down. What was it you were doing? Something wrong, Regulator? Oh, right. Nothing at all. Now that you think about it, there was something else you wanted to ask. I was just thinking, where is this friend of yours? And what happened to them? That's one thing I'm not at liberty to talk about. It's not my business. I think by now I've established that it doesn't so much matter whose business it is. Careful, Regulator. Or what? Or I will ask you to leave. And then what, you think I'd just go? I don't think you took the vial, but I know from experience that intuition is a far cry from precognition. Precognition? I don't know. Precognition? Would you call it cynical if I told you I was still suspicious of you, of everyone here? I don't think that's what makes you cynical. You know what? You have every right to call me a cynic. I'll afford that to you. By your standards, we're all cynics. Maybe we should take a page out of your book and live in austerity. Let's all just let plague eat us alive. Who cares? Why should death matter if we're pure of heart? I can't speak for the rest of the planet, but it wouldn't do you any harm to let a few things go. Ugh, why does he keep doing that? I'm sorry, this just isn't something I can do. Okay. I understand. He smiles. I knew you would. I doubt you'd want to see him anyway. He's in pretty bad shape, I imagine. Yeah. Like I said, it hasn't been easy. He rubs the back of his neck in a way that's almost apologetic. His friend obviously means a lot to him. But then something else catches your attention. It was quick, but his head turned just barely over his left shoulder. You follow his eyes. There's a door. Interesting. I suppose I should keep my promise. Nothing about this is related to my investigation, so like I said, I'll look the other way. That's just about all I need for you. Thanks for your time. Jerbat stands. You move to do the same, but he motions for you to remain seated. Before you go, I know this trip hasn't been kind to you, but I appreciate what you're doing. The way I see it, least I can do is make you some tea. I grew it myself. Isolated, of course, no contamination. Tea isn't... Actually, that would be nice. He smiles at you again, then he slowly walks out of the church. Time to investigate. I love, as soon as everyone's gone, time to be a bastard. You know what you're doing is wrong. Well, that's not exactly it. You know it would be wrong for someone who wasn't investigating something as serious as you are. Not to mention, Jerbat is incredibly cagey. No one is that defensive when they have nothing to hide. You would have to be an idiot to not take this opportunity. This wouldn't be the first time you took advantage of a suspect leaving you by yourself, and if you recall, which you do, some of your most groundbreaking discoveries have come from snooping around on your own. In a way, it's sort of all you know. That, and there's something eating at you. It feels like you've been losing control this whole time. If you have to leave and you come up with nothing, you only let yourself get taken advantage of again. For sweeps now, you've been nothing if not easy to manipulate. Corporate, your mystery caller, now Jerbat. You're done. This lapdog can hold her own leash for once. You start by taking a more careful look around you. This church is nice enough, but upon further investigation it does ring out as a little on the gauche side. The pendant you wear around your neck is proof of that. You can't help but wonder what would have happened if you hadn't put it on. All eyes are on you as you stand up and walk towards the door in the back. It's unlocked. This place is disgusting. It almost makes you feel like you stumbled into the secret dungeon in one of those reality show turned psychological horror TV programs that seem to be so popular these days. Honestly, you don't remember the last time Remeton aired a season of decent reality TV. At this point, it'd be more avant-garde for a bunch of beefcakes to actually just hang out with each other for 30 minutes. A brisk walk down the centre hallway grants you a mental map of the floor. Looks like there are about 6 rooms here. You decide to start from the far end and work your way up. You suppose this dismal lighting is probably meant to inspire feelings of danger in you, but the only feeling you get from the place is that it's trying too hard to give you a headache. What are these, gas lamps? And so many chandeliers? Whoever planned this decor clearly had an aesthetic in mind, one that makes it hard for you to believe that all of these cobwebs are real. At the end of the hall, one of the doors on your left hangs slightly open. You peek inside. Empty. What a waste. The next door you try opens into what looks like a storage room. Inside is just about anything a troll would need to survive long stretches underground. Food, clothes, detergents. Nothing useful to you. You take some minor pleasure in throwing the door closed and hearing the thud it makes echo down the hall. The next door you try is locked. That won't do. You step back and plant a solid kick under the doorknob. The wood splinters but doesn't break completely. Apparently you need to do more physical training. You prepare yourself for a second kick. The door all but shatters with a satisfying crunch. What remains slams against the wall inside and bounces back at you, shaking violently against its hinges. When you check inside, the disquiet in your head evolves into a dreadful seriousness. Unlit candles are amassed in the centre of the room around a ring planted with religious symbols. The floors are dirty with discarded objects, and what could be either food or blood stains the walls. None of it could be more than a couple of weisses old. You scan the corners and for a moment you see yourself as a sacrifice under a blade, lying prone in the centre of the circle. One slip and the blood on the walls could be yours. You should wrap this up quick. Gerbat? Oh shit. There's your suspect. He's just barely poking his head out of the room behind you. Not quite. You storm towards him, drawing your sword. He quickly steps back but makes no move to close the door on you. You respect that. Wait. Who are you? Do you need something? You can start by identifying yourself. You push your way in. He recoils, backpedaling to re-establish some distance between you. Just a child. Let him. Don't fucking draw your sword on him. My name is Kretus. I'm the head of the church. Is Gerbat with you? Is he begging for help already? Pathetic. Gerbat won't be joining us. As for you, you grab your suspect's arm. Come with me. He struggles, but when it comes to strength there's no contest. You force him across the hall. You hear his breathing quicken when he sees the painted circle. This was your doing, was it not? He doesn't respond. His arms cover his face instead, wrapping around his head. Tell me, how many trolls have you sacrificed in this room? How many innocent lives were lost because of you? It's not like that. His voice is barely audible, a breeze over a waterfall. I'm not in the mood for lies, cultist. You don't understand. You force him against the wall. Don't. I think I understand perfectly fine. You spent sweeps building a tomb and now you're ashamed of the bodies. You make me sick. He's practically choking on his own breath now. I won't let you kill anyone else. Suddenly Kretas snaps. In a flash his teeth sink into your arm. You pull back and slam him into the wall hard enough that he's forced to release you and gasp for air. As soon as you're free, your sword is at his throat. He responds by collapsing into a pitiful heap. You glare at him for a moment. This is nothing new to you, really. You've seen tons of suspects cry like this. Each time it ends the same. You unsheath your second best dueling rapier. Take it. His only response is another wail. He has hidden his face fully behind his arms, his nails digging sharply into the back of his head. Don't make him do this. Don't make him do this. This is your only chance at survival. Get up. No! Still, he doesn't move. Maybe you should just end this. You feel the blood soaking through your coat sleeve from the bite. This feels familiar. For one graceful moment, all sound melts away. Your head spins. Across the hall you can just see into Kretas's room. It's a wreck. There are layers of dishes and clothes, strange stains, abysmal lighting. It's as if the motivation to even move had evaporated. It looks kind of like yours did when Alina died. You turn back towards Kretas, who has given up on screaming. His body is racked with gentle sobs. Your grip on the rapier loosens. A hand grabs the collar of your coat and you watch the room pulse as you are dragged away. The sound returns all at once as your second best rapier hits the ground. As you are pulled into the hall, you realise you will likely never see it again. Gerbat deposits you at the top of the stairs just outside the door you snuck into mere minutes ago. As you fall on your knees, he quickly disappears. For a brief moment you are again left alone. In the middle of the church floor is an upturned tea set, its contents slowly seeping onto the carpet between the pews. When Gerbat returns, he doesn't even look at you. He stops just in front of you, seemingly in physical pain, and drops an assortment of herbs and bandages onto the ground. For the bite. The words fall from his mouth like cinder blocks. Yet this is our fault. As they hit the ground, his eyes turn up and he glowers at you, his face a tepid mixture of confusion and brutal disappointment. He practically jerks himself away when he turns to go back downstairs. The door slams behind him. Given time, it's remarkably easy to become someone else. One could simply walk into another room. Values and morals are malleable, derived from sycophantic threads like an unspoken mesh between the devout and the desperate, an intrinsic affectation. It's disquieting to perform for no audience, just as it is to realise that when the audience is gone, so too is most of what you would call you. Silence will kill you. It suffocates. It recapitulates. It exposes you. It makes it all too easy to believe that this doesn't matter. You're not meant to be liked after all, and even if you were, what makes Gerbat qualified to pass any kind of judgment on you? You've known for a long time that there was never any magic in this world. It's his fault for not realising that himself. Fuck this and fuck him too. You remember back at the office when you first joined as a junior regulator, one of the first things that caught your eye was a piece of paper stapled to the wall. It was a crudely drawn square, bright blue ink with the caption, "Bang head here," repeatedly. It was some kind of office joke, something about being fed up with management, but it evolved into a tradition. A stupid decision earned you a comment from anyone nearby. Better pay the wall a visit, eh? Well, you know where you're going when you get back. You stand up and move towards the exit, but you can't seem to bring yourself to leave. Is there any chance he could forgive you? He seems like an understanding guy, right? You stare at the door to the stairs. Once again, all eyes are on you. It's not every day a troll sees a regulator get dragged up the stairs and dumped on the floor like a bag of back-beast shit. Your indecision and pacing must be equally as perplexing. You linger, letting yourself get irradiated with judgmental stares until there is only one thought left in your head. You have to get out of here. You turn up towards the church doors, bracing yourselves. You take a deep breath and... What are you still doing here? You look over your shoulder and he's there again, closing the door to the stairs as quietly as possible. He steps away from it and stops about 10 paces from you. He crosses his arms, struggles to get over something visceral, and finally looks up to meet your eyes. You know, I thought I knew you. I don't know why. Call it old souls. But you are not who I thought you were. I guess that's just another example you could use to call me an idealist. So congratulations, regulator. You were right after all. Sorry to hear that. If only I were more predictable for you. Listen, I get it, things are hard, but it is not my job to fix you. Sort yourself out, but don't do it here. He takes a deep breath. If I ever see you here again... He doesn't finish the sentence. Oh. As you walk down the path away from the church, the blood from your arm finally soaks the rest of the way through your coat. It drips unceremoniously from your hand, briefly staining the dark ground below before it is overwhelmed and diluted by mud. You take a moment to wrap your wound with the bandages. You're not well versed enough in herbology to know how to use the rest, but you have people for that back at corporate. Speaking of which, make a sort of mental pros and cons list. Cons. In the past, Weiss, you have learned the brutal truth behind Alina's death, alienated yourself from your place of work, and disobeyed orders to the point where you might as well call yourself freelance. You learned of things that challenged everything you thought you knew about the world, yet you're still so caught up in routine and mixed emotions that your internal monologue sounds a dirge. Last but not least, your clothes are ruined, you're absolutely caked in dirt, fungus and blood, not to mention the bite mark tears in your sleeve and your missing rapier. Thankfully, this settlement doesn't seem too keen on mirrors, otherwise you might have to self-reflect. And the pros? Well, at least you have your pride. Then again, thinking back on what just happened, maybe not. Gerbat's a nobody, and as soon as you leave this place you'll likely never hear anything about him ever again. He's not the type to go running to Hamifi either, so you don't have to worry about another session of heated pen clicking. It's as if you were never here. Besides, even if any of this did matter, he's not about to open a dialogue with you anytime soon. You have nothing to gain from dwelling on this. You decide to forget this night ever happened. It's for the best. You approach your bike, which is still sitting right where you left it. As you take one last glance behind you, you make up your mind and scroll through your list of contacts. This little sabbatical of yours has gone on long enough. It rings a few times, and for a moment you wonder if he's even taking calls from you anymore, but inevitably the ringing stops and you hear the gentle rustle of another person on the line. Secily? He sounds like he just received a call from the dead. Well, maybe that's not exactly right. It's more hopeful than that. He sounds like he just received a call from an old friend. Yes, it's me. I think it's time we talked this out. Damn. Well, that's that, huh? That felt kind of... sad. Like we were getting on so well with Gerbat, but then we fucked it up by police brutality. F. O. The end.